Now you can see that there are a lot of tabs that are being presented in front of you. Joseph must have given you a lot of overview about these tabs, but I will also, make you familiar with all the tabs that you actually need while you do your pen test. So first things first, you can always set it up with a different browser by going into proxy. Burp Suite has kind of changed the UI in the recent days, and so it might be confusing for the older ones as well, but it's not really that confusing, it's convenient. So moving on to the proxy settings tab, you can see that here are the proxy listeners that are being set. You can always configure it according to your browser. What I usually do is I just jump right in and just open the default browser that has been offered by Burp Suite, and I think that's more convenient to do because you don't have to run into the hassle of setting up things. So you can see that a browser has popped up, and I will just walk you through to our default application. Okay, so let's assume this is the application or the web application that we are going to test on using Burp Suite. Again, the primary use of Burp Suite was to test web applications. So the first thing I'm going to introduce you is this is the dashboard, and you can see that a number of things are really happening over here. You can see that the items are being added to the sitemap. Well, the next thing that is mainly this will be more clear in the Burp Suite Pro part of things, because you can run scanners, and as you can see in the normal edition, you can't really have the option of new scan. That's quite sad, but it's fine. Still doing a lot of work in the background. But before we get into that, let's go to the target tab, which is the first one. So what the target, you can see that there are a number of websites that are being displayed in front of you to the left section, and it's code.jquery, and there's Cloudflare, Ajax, all of these things. Ajax, sorry. So you can see that our website is also there. So what you could do is you can just right click on this and tell Burp Suite, hey man, I am going to test on this web app. These are the items in my scope, and I just want you to focus on all of these things. So if you add to scope, you'll be given a prompt, a proxy history logging. So you have added an item to target scope. Do you want Burp proxy to stop sending out of scope items? Yes, you do. Okay, and now you can see, if you move to the proxy, you can see all of the requests that are present. I have not traversed much right now through the application, but it has just collected the data for now. So let's say if I move on to some different functionality, yep, I think there will be more requests here. So these things personally, it would be more clearer when we move to the HTTP history tab, which we are going to come in a bit. So let me just walk you through it first. So you can see in the proxy tab, there is HTTP history. Before jumping in, I would like to give you a small theory as to why we are using Burp Suite in the first place. It's because you are trying to intercept the traffic, or in simple words, it's like knowing more about the functionality that is being used in a web application. So when you're a consumer, you probably click on your reset password button, and then you're like, okay, fine, because obviously you are really not an attacker or a security pen tester, so you're a consumer, so you think like, okay, I want to reset this password. But when we are actually pen testing all of these things, we want to know what all calls or what all methods are being used when a reset password functionality button has been clicked, and that is where Burp Suite comes into picture. So what it does is, it basically gives you the request of the whole password functionality, and you can actually check the request as to what all details are going inside that button, as well as what or the form or the response of the request as well. We'll come into it in a bit. So you can see that there is your HTTP history. It has a lot of stuff. You could also just right click on lab and add to scope or remove to scope, same thing that we did earlier. That's just more of the convenience part. So moving on to the first tab, that is the Intruder tab. So in simple words, Intruder tab, why do you really use it? So let's say you are trying to pawn a web application. Let me just log out of it. Spoiler alert. Never mind. So we are on the login page and we don't know the email address, as well as we don't know the email address. But in this case, let's just assume we know the email address, that is aaron@gmail.com. and we don't know the password. So what an ideal human being would do, he would say, hey, let me just type test, is it the right password? Let me just give it another try. Admin, login failed. Another vulnerability you could see, spoiler alert again, there's a SQL query being displayed, which is really not a good practice in web applications. Let's get back to our Burp Suite video course again. Let's not get carried away. And you might try a number of set of passwords with the hopes and the attempts of actually getting inside the application. And now in a pen test, you have limited time, and you need to do things in a much efficient way. So what Intruder does is basically automates these things for you. So what we are going to use is, we are going to use a public word list. And in simple words, I would say we are going to use a number of values, and you are going to tell Burp Suite to, hey, you take care of all of these values and let me know which one is the correct one. This will be more clearer right now as we dive in the practical. So you can see, let's just go and copy a password word list. So here's one that you could do, and I'm just going to copy the first 7-8 values. In real world scenarios, people, if there's no rate limiting or account lockout mechanism being implemented in a web application, you can actually run it for plenty amount of time as per whatever your goal is. But for now, I'm using a Burp Suite Community Edition. Also, we have to cover a lot of things, so I'm just going to select a number of values from here. So you can copy this and basically move to your desktop. Just a sec. I'll just pop the folder in so that you guys can see. Okay, alright, and let's just create a new password list. So let's call it word list, and you paste all of these passwords in here. That makes sense? Yep, it does. Now you know the username, but you really don't know the password. So what you want to do is, you turn on intercept. Again, intercept is a basic feature that is used in order to get to know more of the request that is being sent to the server when you click a specific functionality. Likewise, when I click on the login button, let's say I don't know the password yet, so I would say random password, and I click on the login button. Now Burp Suite pops out and is like, hey, there's the request. Now when the difference, if you're a consumer, you would just click on login button, you got the login failed response from the server. But as pen testers, you must dive into the, again, I'm repeating the same things, but it will make sense to you eventually. So obviously the series has been made and laid out with an intention that also the beginner learners as well as intermediate learners will benefit from this series. So, don't mind me really repeating the same stuff, because these are certain important things that you really need to keep in your mind. So you can see that we have entered a username Aaron, and there was a password which was a random password. Now I don't really want to manually type things, I want to send it to Intruder. So you can right click on the request and you can select send to Intruder. Now in the Intruder tab, you will add a payload position around the password, which is the random password. So you can see, first of all, let me introduce you to our Intruder tab. So you can see that you can select a attack type. Now this attack uses a single set of payloads and one or more payload positions. It places each payload into the first position, then each payload inserted into the second position, and so on. You can, walk yourself through all of these definitions. It's really simple, and the most used attack types are personally sniper or cluster bomb, because you might be using, likewise in this practical as well, we are going to use the Intruder tool in order to guess the password of a user account. So it can be OTPs, it can be tokens, and you are going to most likely use all the cluster bomb or the sniper. So let's keep it simple. Let's not keep a lot of clutter of information and just be specific to the things that we really require in a pen test. So You set up a payload position around a random password. You select it and you click on add $. So you are basically telling Burp Suite to iterate a number of values that are being supplied to it on this specific payload position, which is the password. You move to the payloads tab and you can see that there are a number of things again. You can select numbers, you can select simple list. Since we are dealing with a simple password word list and we are dealing with letters and alphabets, so you're gonna paste some random values. So you can see that you have a payload settings tab. You can copy this from the word list and you can paste it. Done. Alright, now it's time to see the magic and click on our start attack button. Click OK, don't really worry about this error. And you can see, now if you click on the first request, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is where, that is the beauty of Intruder, to be honest. So what he did was, he first used the first value from our word list, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He inserted it into the password field of the web application, and now it's trying to give you a request, you can see. And now if you check the response, it will see that it has given you a 200 OK response. Well, there are times where you can also get it false. I mean, you might get a 200 OK, but you are not but that's not actually the real password. If you click on the length tab, you can see that there was a length change when the password was QWERTY. Again, always checking if your intruder attack was successful or not, always click on the length tab. It is because it's simple. When you are submitting something wrong, the length will be the same because the response from the server would be something, I mean, if there is an error message being displayed by the server, obviously the content length would be the same. But if you are logged in into a server, there will be profile, there will be a number of things that are being loaded into your page. So there is a length change. So that is exactly what is indicated over here. Now if you click on QWERTY, you can see that there has been a length change when the request was, username and the password was QWERTY. If you check the response, now you can see that you have successfully logged in. Again, we are human beings, we love to verify things. We obviously can't depend on bots a lot of times. So it's really not what. An intruder tool is very handy. Keep in mind. So let's just type our password. Before we do that, you might be like, why is the application not functioning? You have to go to the proxy tab and turn intercept off. That's simple, something that you will keep in mind and come handy when you work on pen test as well. So if you enter the password as QWERTY, you can see that you have successfully logged in into the web application. Similarly, it can be done for the admin user as well. If you click on go to profile, here it is. You actually use Intruder to get access to the web application where you did not you know the username but did not know about the password. That's it about the Intruder tool.